And one thing that I did and I do is a customer journey map. To understand that customer experience, I use customer journey mapping. If you know never heard of that terminology or that term, it's simply looking from the customer's standpoint, going from an experience that they have. In college, for example, the new student enrollment, from the time that they first have interest in enrolling into your school, what does that look like? And going step by step.
That is David Stewart, the CIO of Lakeland College in Illinois. David's exceptional attention to detail and customer-centric approach has made him a standout in his field, as you just heard in the snippet. In this episode, David will share his wealth of knowledge with us, offering invaluable tips and strategies for success. We are thrilled to have him here with us today, so without further ado, let's dive in and welcome David Stewart to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CIO Talk. Today, I'm excited to have a chat with David Stewart, who's the Chief Information Officer at Lakeland College in Illinois. Welcome, David. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing, Riaz?
I'm doing great. Thanks, David. Thanks for joining us. I'm looking forward to this conversation today. Could you tell, for the benefit of my audience, could you talk about your current role and your career journey in terms of how you got here, where you are today?
Yes. I am currently, as you mentioned, the CIO, Chief Information Officer at Lakeland College in Mattoon, Illinois. I have been here a year and a half, a little bit over a year and a half, and Lakeland College is one of the leading, I'd like to say, toot our own horn, we're one of the leading community colleges in the Midwest or state of Illinois. Some of the things we have, we tout our Laker points of pride, our affordability and our earning success, because our tuition, our fees, and our textbooks rentals are extremely reasonable compared to other colleges and universities. In fact, our general ed courses are about a quarter of the cost of a university, and our students enter the workplace with 16% more earning power with their degree. There's a lot of things in terms of academic success for Lakeland College, so I'm kind of proud to be here. Our transfer student GPAs are 11% higher than some of the native university students. We have 6% higher student retention rate than our national average, and our full-time students complete their degrees about twice as fast as the national average. We are one of the top 10% community colleges in the nation, according to Aspen Institute. Our grads excel on our national board exams. Dental hygiene, medical assistant, EMS, ADNs, physical therapist assistant, and massage therapies. We're almost at 100% across all of those academic areas and programming areas. And we are the top choice for our in-district schools and high school grads that are going to college. Our medical building program is first in the nation. Our nursing program ranked third in the state, and we are ranked number 4 in the state of Illinois for best vocational colleges. So that's a lot about where I'm at, about Lakeland College.
Let me say this. Kudos to your college administration for making higher education affordable. All right, that's an important aspect of community colleges. So really appreciate what your college leadership is doing there. Go ahead, David. Tell us about your career journey.
My current journey started, I didn't have aspirations to be in IT. For example, I started about 30 years ago where I had a change in career, and I started, as I was going to school, I was going to get a business administration degree because I had aspirations of being an entrepreneur and running my own business, but I wanted to make sure that I had the business acumen and skills in order to succeed in business. Because as I often say, you know, like Mama's Kitchen does not go out of business because Mama doesn't know how to cook. Usually it goes out of business, as most traditional businesses go out of business, because somewhere there was some business acumen or business strategies that were failed. So as I was going to school, I had to take, and this was, mind you, this was about 30 years ago, I had to take an entry-level computer course because at that time they were getting back up to speed. Computers were being introduced almost everywhere, and I had no prior computer skills, and so I was extremely nervous about that. And as a result, I went way overboard to learn the materials. And as a result, the instructor was so impressed by me, he sought me out after the class was over, after the completion of that semester. The next semester, he walked into my English class and said, "Come to my office after this." And he said, "I want to talk you into going into this field." Long story short, I ended up going into the field, and I'm thankful today. I started at the bottom. I started as an intern and worked my way up through the desktop team, help desk, the break fix, support team, infrastructure. I was supervising the desktop team, supervising in vulnerability management and patch management, supervising in information security, and managing also in the infrastructure team. So I've had a long journey to get here and a lot of experience in a lot of different disciplines and areas in IT. But I've been in IT leadership for a greater part of 20 years.
Wonderful. I just want to quickly say something here for a portion of my audience, because some of my audience are growing IT leaders. They are not managers or directors yet, but they want to be an IT leader. So I think they can take a great lesson from your career journey, that you worked hard and then you showed your passion, and then someone recognized it, and then they put you in the right path, right? That's what happens. If you're serious about something, work hard and demonstrate that you are ready for the next level, then that will be noticed, and you will continue to grow that way. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your career journey with us, David. Next question, I'd like to ask you about a project or an experience that you are proud of. Tell us about that.
I'll probably go with one of my more recent ones. Is that one of the reasons when I came here, like I said, I've been here about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. It was a new experience. I came here in the middle of a pandemic. Now that was a very different experience, because here I am starting a new role and nobody's in. We had the governor's stay-at-home order. Nobody was in the building. One of the things that one of the projects that I had and I immediately began to work on was, how do we better connect? Because the world shifted to Zoom as their communication media. And Zoom was one of the platforms. I'm not getting paid by Zoom, but it was one of the platforms, as we know, that a lot of people used to connect together. And a lot of the instructors and faculty here were using, collaboration tools such as that. And it was great to be able to shift at a moment's notice. Almost, for most of us, it was almost overnight that we had to shift because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came on board, one of the things that I wanted to do was to improve the environment and the experience, not just for the faculty and staff members, but more importantly was for our students. I wanted to make sure that they had an interactive and connected experience, because one of the things that's difficult is instruction. When you are trying to instruct and you're drawing on the whiteboard, for example, and you're trying to turn the camera to the whiteboard and you get the glare. And a lot of it is it's not the greatest experience. So what I've learned that happens is students, when or you have audio issues or connectivity issues or bandwidth issues with internet, and what was happening, some of the students would become disengaged, just the same way we do if we're connected virtually and we can't actually get in, or we can't hear, or we can't see something. What will happen is we'll turn our attention elsewhere. We'll try to block that out. So we'll start impacting the learning experience and environment. Yep. So one of my first experiences and one of my first projects was, let's improve that experience for our students and our faculty. So I began to research high-flex solutions, and we researched several solutions for high-flex, and we made a significant, over $1 million investment into our high-flex technology, and we implemented some technology that has really changed the environment and the landscape for us.
Excellent. You're making a very good point. Pandemic brought us, the technologists, to the forefront of the modernization, right? So there is a need to use technology now to deliver the content and the teaching in different ways to our students, to our learners. So that's a very essential aspect of technologists today. And kudos to you for what you have accomplished at Lakeland in implementing HighFlex. Harper, we have also implemented HighFlex, and we are looking to expand that as well. So I think that's where we are all moving in that direction. So digital transformation is the word we are all hearing about, right, David? So I'm wondering, what does digital transformation mean to you?
As you mentioned, it is a word we all hear of. Digital transformation is the latest buzzword in IT and in business. And basically, the simple definition is it's the adoption of digital technology in our organization. But even expanding past that is more of the processes of using those digital technologies to create, modify our existing, or to transform our business processes, our culture, and ultimately our customer experience. We want to do better and more efficient work, and have our experiences be more efficient.
Got it. Okay. So
and that's what and technology allows us to do things better. And one thing I want to interject there is a lot of, in my past life, a couple of companies that I worked for, they experienced downsizing and layoffs. And what ended up happening, the result with my teams, I ended up having smaller teams. But the work never changed. The workload or the amount of work that we had to handle, it doesn't change. We still have the same amount of work, if not more, but we have less resources or less headcount in order to do it. Digital transformation enables you to do more with less, I would say.
Okay, perfect. That's the best way to put it. Digital transformation enables to do more with less. Okay. What can organizations do to digitally transform themselves?
I think an organization have to be real and honest about who they are, and where they are. You have to know who you are, your mission statement and your values, your vision statement. I say it simply this way: your mission statement tells you who you are as an organization. Your vision statement talks about where you want to go. And where we want to be in 3 to 5 years. What are we striving to be? Along with that, we set strategies. Usually our strategy is like a 3 to 5 year strategy. Even though we can't predict the future 100%, there are some things that we can see, some trends that we could follow and understand, this is going to impact us in the future. So in order to digitally transform, I'll go back to what I originally said, you have to know who you are. Why digitally transform and be something that you're not, and you're just doing it just because it's the latest buzzword? You have to understand, how will technology enable me to get there? Where am I trying to go? Why do I need to get there? And how will technology enable me to get there? And a lot of it, when you start talking about digital transformation, for me, you have to be customer centric. I think you have to look at who is your customer, who's your primary customer, what's your target market, and things like that. And so you have to, how could I better empower my customers, my target market, to do what they are needing to do or wanting or desiring to do? So how can you do digital transformation is to look at yourself, at who you are, also look at your customers, at what they are trying to do, and how could you better do that? And one thing that I did and I do is a customer journey map to understand that customer experience. I use customer journey mapping. If you never heard of that terminology or that term, it's simply looking from the customer's standpoint, going from an experience that they have. In college, for example, the new student enrollment, from the time that they first have interest in enrolling into your school, what does that look like? And going step by step by step, all the way through that journey of that student's experience. And what is that experience like, not from our perspective as IT or a college, but from the student's perspective? What is that student experiencing? And where it may work great for me in IT or somebody in admissions, it may work great for them, or for the counseling team or the recruiting team, it may be working great for them, but it could be a horrible experience for our students. And in order for us to transform digitally, we have to understand our customers. So that's what I'm trying to explain.
That's very well said.
That you have to know your customers.
Right. We have to understand our customers, and you're making another important point, having that customer journey map, right? We all know our customer's life cycle, but having it in writing, preparing a map, I think it's a great idea. It's a great idea. Thanks for sharing that. What is your current technology layout at Lakeland, David?
Currently, Lakeland is pretty traditional. What I mean by that is our hardware and software, our networking infrastructure, they're owned, managed, and maintained by us on-prem for the most part. We do have some hyperconverged infrastructure, in other words, some virtualized infrastructure. We were 100% virtual on our desktop and server environment prior to the pandemic. However, post-pandemic, we had to add some laptops to the mix. Mm-hmm. We utilized thin clients for our virtual machines, and most of the software is installed locally on individuals' machines as well as on-prem servers.
Got it. Okay, that's great. What's your infrastructure strategy for the next 3 to 5 years?
I want to right size it. I would like to know what we need. One of the things that the pandemic did to us is the mass resignation. And IT teams, especially in higher ed, I think K through 12 has been experiencing this for a while where they have like one IT person or a handful of IT people. They don't have big budget for IT. Because of the way higher ed is traditionally funded, usually public institutions, is by taxpayers' funds and student tuition for the most part. So as a result, we have to be very cost effective and efficient with our funds and our budgeting. So when I say right size, one of the things we know there's talent gaps. We know that there's struggle maintaining talent because during the pandemic, a lot of higher ed lost a lot of their IT staffing. So my strategy in the next 3 to 5 years is to make sure that I'm right sizing our infrastructure in terms of where should we be? You know, where we were very on-prem centric in the past. We are now more, and I'm looking at more cloud strategies. And you know, how can we utilize the cloud to kind of improve our effectiveness and the value we bring as the IT team to this organization, and it also enables us to do more with less. The cloud will allow us to offload, or I call it like managed services, utilize managed infrastructure as a service or applications as a service, platforms as a service, utilize some of those current technologies out there to now further the reach and make my team more efficient to where we can focus instead of managing the pond per se, we can take care of the fish within the pond.
Well said. So sounds like you have some plans to go into cloud. So do you have a cloud strategy?
Yes, I want to design and optimize our strategy to ultimately optimize our business outcome. I want to look at the speed and the resiliency and the agility of our services that we offer. And one of the things I say, I have to do all of that. Yes, we, on an individual basis today, we are doing that, and we do it on a project by project basis. We determine whether or not we want to go to the cloud or not. When I came here, one of the questions when I was interviewing was, "Are you anti-cloud or are you?" I said, "I'm neither. I'm agnostic." And the reason being is because there are areas and there's situations where a cloud strategy, where a cloud solution is optimal, and that's the direction to go. And then there's solutions that, well, no, you better watch it. Don't go to the cloud quite yet on that. And there's a lot of variables that go into that, and you have to understand the variables, understand the needs, and understand your organization. So my strategy is to right size it. What needs to be in the cloud? What value does the cloud offer? Because some of the vendors, you talk to the salespeople, they will tout everything and anything. For example, I'd say about 5-10 years ago, there was this great migration to the cloud for storage, and you could put your data in there and it's very cheap. Yes, it was extremely cheap. But what they found was you can put it in the cloud cheap, but when you had to move the data, that was extremely expensive. In fact, the costs were exponentially more than on-prem storage. So they put data in the cloud because they thought it was cost saving. And then when they tried to move the data, they found out that it was extremely expensive to do that. Also, one of the things you have to consider with cloud strategy is security. Now you have, are you going private cloud? Are you going public cloud? Are you going hybrid cloud? who owns the data? Where is it? Who owns the infrastructure? Who manages the security within that? Because most of us, just because we're in the cloud, it does not mean that, the third-party vendor is responsible for everything. No, you have to read your agreements and read the contract, because that language is generally specific about who owns what and who is responsible for what. So it's a hybrid relationship that you have to understand when going to cloud. So when my simple answer is I want to right-size it, but that means I got a lot of research and a lot of information that I need to bring together and start making decisions about cloud. Because as opposed to going one by one, project by project, I want to develop a holistic cloud strategy. And do I have it already designed today and in place? No, I do not. Why? Because the results of the pandemic, we have been scrambling, to stay abreast of those situations. And when the smoke clears, as it is, we believe it is now, that's when I plan to put that cloud strategy in place.
Sounds great. So David, quick follow-up. You said it's cheaper to put data on the cloud, but it's expensive to get it off the cloud, right? So could you help me understand what would be a scenario when a customer need to move the data out of the cloud? Why would someone need to get the data out of the cloud?
There's situations where you know that you're going to be utilizing that data all the time. There's a lot of I/O or input-output. There's a lot of exchange and moving of the data. That type of data may not be the best for cloud storage when you're interacting. Like, for example, you have to think about your ERP, for example, and not saying now the ERP solutions are changing, but you really need to watch when you're trying to make changes to your data often, when you need to modify the setup, the infrastructure, all of that. You really need to watch what you're putting in the cloud, because the rules of engagement and how you can change and when you can change, a lot of that you're restricted. So I use ERP as an example, but there are a lot of migrating, especially in higher ed. There's a lot of higher education institutions that are migrating to the cloud for their ERP because they no longer have the staff to support it. They lost a lot of their staff through the pandemic. So as a result, they're moving. But, I mean, if the world were perfect and we didn't have to worry about staffing levels, you want to consider some of those things as far as, we have a lot of customization. A high customized area is it's probably not the best fit for a cloud solution.
Got it. Okay. David, I'm wondering, what changes do you predict in IT in the next 5 years?
Well, one we're seeing off of the top. We're seeing cybersecurity. One of the things, especially in higher ed, that's going on, higher ed has not spent a lot of budget towards security. And as a result, our security has been lacking, and we're low-hanging fruit. The bad guys, I'll call them, the cyber attackers, they have traditionally not gone after soft targets like higher ed or, K through 12, because not directly, not a targeted attack generally, unless there was a specific reason. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons is because there was not much value. We didn't have money like the private institutions. But now it's not just the money; it's the data that they're going after. Mm-hmm. They're going after the data because they know that maybe your security is not as robust as it needs to be. So as a result, security, cybersecurity, and the skill sets around cybersecurity are becoming a top priority for organizations. As we read the news, we, not just in higher ed, but across all industries, we see proliferation and escalation of cyber attacks. So I believe cyber skills and cyber security in and of itself will be a priority in the next 5 years or so. I see a change in IT, and especially post-pandemic. One of the things is we have to be gatekeepers as opposed to, instead of being gatekeepers, we're more service and solution providers. We have to look at ourselves as solution providers as opposed to gatekeepers. The traditional IT, vision and leadership is we control everything. No, we are in, and Riaz, you've heard me use this term before. The best relationship is in a partnership, a strategic partnership with the business, with the organization. And as IT, to be providers as opposed to being gatekeepers. I tell my team all the time, we're not the no people. We're so used to being able to say, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. What ends up happening is our end users go around us, and we have silo IT here and there because they no longer find us useful. And we're more stick in the mud, and we hinder progress as opposed to helping it. So I see IT going from gatekeepers to providers. I see self-service becoming more prevalent and more of the norm before, and that's getting back to the gatekeepers where we always had to have our hands on everything. Well, the pandemic again taught us that we have limited resources, so we have to better utilize the resources and capabilities. The best way to do that is to offload it and put things where they need to be. If we can empower our user base, our users to do more self-service and do it themselves, like in the banking industry, fintech, for example, they allow us to change our own passwords. When was the last time when you had a password issue logging into your bank, you had to call the IT person at your bank? We don't do that anymore. So, that end-user self-service is another big one. I think remote work is one of the things that even in higher ed, we grapple with and we struggle with, but I think it's here to stay. It's part of our new norm. We have to embrace it and see where it fits and where it works. Where it was a hard line no in the past, today we have to think about things like that.
Got it. Okay, those are great thoughts, David. So speaking of security, what security measures do you think organizations should take to improve their security posture and also to protect themselves from potential attacks?
Well, I said earlier in my introduction, I had to manage information security. I had experience in information security. And one of the things that I learned in that process is everybody is a target. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do. Everybody potentially is a target. And so where I mentioned earlier that higher ed was not seen as a target as much, in years past, today we are. You see it in the news all the time. So we have to view ourselves as a target. We also know that, if you're not private, Fortune 500 company, got millions of dollars in revenue and budget that you could expend towards your IT and your security teams, what can I do to make sure I have coverage, security, that we don't get breached?
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand what is your landscape. Understand your landscape. What are you trying to protect? Know where your secret sauce is. What is your most important data and information? What is it that you want to protect, and what are the standards for protection for this particular environment? And so you have to understand that. So all of that stuff might be a little bit technical, but the simple solution is to find a framework or something. You have to find a framework. One is, and there's many of them out there. One, I know NIST have frameworks. CIS has frameworks. COBIT has frameworks. There's so many different types of frameworks. Any of them will work as to start out, because as you're learning, you will get more familiarized with where you need to go. One that I tout and I really like because it's more user-friendly and they break it down by your industry, not just industry, but by your size, your organization size, is the CIS critical security controls. It used to be the top 20, but here lately over the past year, they reduced it down to 18 critical security controls. What are that? CIS formed a coalition with NIST and other standards organizations with SANS and NIST to talk about these organizations. They don't have unlimited budget, so what should they be budgeting? What should they be protecting based on the latest attacks that are out there? And they come up with a list of 20, now 18 controls that say if you put these 18 in, you are best protected against the latest attacks that are out there. It doesn't promise that you will not be breached, but it says you have the best layers of protection. So the best security control is security in depth. And what that means is you have several layers of security protocols in place. I would start with the CIS security controls and then break it down by your organization size, whether it's a small, I think they have them grouped in 3 separate groups. For small business, there's a set of controls. You have a medium-sized business with more than 1,000, and then you have a large enterprise organization. Then there's other things because they know you have more time, more budget, more staff to take care of those things. From a protection standpoint, those are the things that I can tell you that you probably need to take a look at and understand those frameworks.
Okay, that's a very good list of things to take a look at. You had mentioned about the remote work and that it's going to continue at some capacity going forward, right? So I'm just curious, what's your department's experience with working remotely, and what are your plans for the future?
So my department in and of itself has always, we've embraced remote work. And we had a very good, positive experience with remote work because the majority of our task responsibilities can be performed remotely. That's not every job, every role. For example, some of my enterprise application team, most of my programmers, developers, they could do their job from home. They hardly ever have to come on site. My security team, the same thing. They hardly have to come on site. But on the other side of the room, where my infrastructure team is, we have to make sure we have a presence because when hardware fails, somebody has to be boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. So we had a very positive experience. We didn't get much kickback from the ones who roles required that they be on site as opposed to those who their role didn't. And we just managed it that way, and it was a very positive experience. The users did not see any type of degradation in the service and the support that we provide. So from our perspective as an IT department, there was a very positive experience for remote work. The college itself is a little bit more conservative. In other words, our position is our students are on site. We have an in-presence environment with our students, and if they're on site, it looks bad if they come on site on campus and there's nobody on campus, or there's 10% of the faculty and staff that are on campus. So we have a balance, and what we have been doing here at Lakeland is we have a pilot program for our remote work, and part of our pilot is its manager has a certain simplified set of rules that they have to determine whether that role is a good fit. And then we have to provide feedback, quarterly feedback as to how is it working for each role that is working remote. And
Okay.
so far it's been going.
Excellent. I'm glad you're doing that, because piloting is always the best way to test the waters before jumping in. That's great. David, what advice would you give to budding IT leaders?
Read, research, learn. One of the things is budding IT leaders. One of the things is we have to stop thinking so technically and think strategically. We are very good tactically, but strategically we get a little lost sometimes as a leader. Most of the IT leaders come from the floor of IT, and we are very good. That's why we got promoted, was because we were very good at the technology. But then when we get promoted up, and there's sometimes, because it just goes along with our personality and our traits as IT, what drives us to be in IT, we're a little more disconnected we're not people persons. We don't like to interact a lot of times. So you have to watch that side of it, because IT, we're here for the customers. We're here for our end users. So as a result, you have to have a great relationship with your user base. And so I say read and learn and research, not just the technology, but what that user experience is. And I talked about how we have become gatekeepers instead of providers, and we look at it, that's our infrastructure, that's our server, that's our desktop, that's our life. But no, we're in a strategic relationship. That's just technology that we are using to better enable our users and empower our users. So learn from others. And I read a lot, and I learn a lot from other people, and I learn from those who are successful as well as those who have not been quite successful. And ask questions, ask a lot of questions. One of the things that I also say is don't give somebody else the power over your career. It is your career, and you have to take ownership of your career, because somebody else, including your boss, may not be as vested in your career as you are. Mm-hmm. And your boss has ideas and aspirations for you in relation to the needs of that organization or, your department. But your aspirations may be a way ahead of that. For example, you may want to be the CIO, you may want to be the director, you may want to be in a certain role, but your boss may not see you in that role. And that happens quite a bit. But you have to make sure you're improving yourself. Always be honest with yourself about where you are, knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, and always build upon your weaknesses, those areas that are weak. I did a lot of personal development, and not just in technology, but in a lot of different areas and paradigms, a lot of strategy books and things that I read, and always trying to improve myself.
Excellent. Those are excellent advices, David. Thank you. You said read, right? So, and it sounds like you read a lot as well. What business-related book would you recommend for my audience?
I'm not sure if I can categorize them business related, but they are business related. So I'm gonna go to quite a few. I'm gonna give you about 3 or 4 books that
Sure.
I would, somebody, especially an aspirational leader. The first book that I want to talk about is called Outside In by Harley Hanning and Carrie Bodine. It's more so, I don't know if you can access that. It's part of Forrester Research Library, and it was written in like 2012. It's called Outside In, and
Okay.
it's called it's Understanding Your Customer, and it's really talking about the power of putting the customers at the center of your business. And reading that book really blew my mind about the customer experience, and that book will help you in customer journey mapping. So I think that is one, Outside In by Harley Hanning and Carrie Bodine. Another one is a simple book, and many probably have heard of it. It's just called Who Moved My Cheese
Yeah,
by Spencer Johnson.
that's a very
And
popular book.
one of the reasons I say that is because the success or the failure of many of our projects and our initiatives is because people hate change. It's because we do not adapt well to change. And so we have to, as IT leaders, we have to be very good managers of change. We have to do change management very well. And I'm not talking about the change management process in terms of, well, we think about our process is about having a change administration board. Not that. I'm talking about change when we're changing something that somebody does, and they've been doing it for 10 years or 15 years, and for you to go in and say, I'm going to put this in place and it's going to shift the way you do business.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we need to manage. So I believe Who Moved My Cheese is one that it helps you to understand all of the little characters, the little mice characters in their him and hawing and their names, about how are they handling change and why are they handling it that way. The better we understand change, the better we can manage change. So Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson.
Okay.
Another one is 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard and Spencer Johnson. It tells a story about 3 techniques of an effective manager: setting 1-minute goals, having 1-minute praisings, have 1-minute reprimands. Each of them take about a minute to get to a lasting benefit. So 1 Minute Manager, but a spinoff of that is a book that I love. It was called 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey by Ken Blanchard also, but William, I believe you pronounce it Onken. They co-wrote that book. In other words, and that was an eye-opener for me when I read that book, because I found out I was taking on those monkeys. What is a monkey? A monkey is a problem. The scenario that they use is every time somebody comes through my door and they come in with problems and they lay those problems on my desk, and I make promises, okay, I'll take care of that for you. Well, the 1 Minute Manager meets the monkey. What they say is, don't take problems or monkeys. Don't take on monkeys that don't belong to you. Mm-hmm. Understand where that belongs and learn how to delegate or push back to people sometimes, because we get so overwhelmed as leaders, especially as a young leader, a young IT leader. I read that book, and everything that they were talking about was a gotcha, oh, wow moment for me. I'm doing exactly that, which was the opposite of what I needed to do. I thought I was being a good leader by taking things, but then I found myself overwhelmed with my priorities, and I couldn't manage my priorities well because I had taken on all these monkeys that never should have been on my desk in the first place. Mm-hmm. So managing your priorities, time management, it's sort of a time management book, but it's beyond time management. It's about thinking about your priorities and things like that. So those are probably 4 books that I would say, if you're new in there in your journey, your career journey, those are 3 that you will avoid a lot of pitfalls by reading those books.
Excellent. Those are great books. Actually, I've read a couple of them. I didn't get a chance to, I didn't realize there's another book called 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey. Now you spiked my curiosity. I'm going to take a look at that. Those are some great book collections, David. Thanks for sharing. What's your favorite?
Yes,
Sorry, go ahead.
I have several books and things that I read from a technology standpoint, strategy books and things like that. But you talk about aspirational leaders. I think one of the things we fall off a bit is the leadership side and understanding where we need to be. We are where we are. We got promoted because we're good and we understand the technology, but understand the strategies, understand the interpersonal things that we need to get better at.
That's very, very true, David. That's where a lot of technologists have a gap, right? So that's very well said. What's your favorite hobby, David?
I love reading. I'm a religious buff, so I like reading the Bible and other theology books and things like that. I love spending time with my family. And in IT, a lot of times our environment, we have our work-life balance kind of off tilt oftentimes because we love what we do. We're enthusiasts with technology. So it consumes us often sometimes, and then you have busy times at work to where it bleeds over into our personal time. We are 24/7 generally, and we got the lights on all the time, but you'll experience burnout. So I like that downtime, just spending it. We don't have to necessarily be having an agenda or an itinerary with my family. I just love doing things, especially spontaneously with my family. That personal time is so valuable to me.
That's very well said. With family, you don't have to necessarily have a meeting scheduled, an agenda prepared, minutes prepared afterwards, and all of that. That's what makes family so special and spontaneous and can get connected and all of that. That's great. Where can my audience find more about you, David?
Well, I do have a LinkedIn page. They can find me on LinkedIn. I do not have a personal website or anything. I am here at Lakeland College in Mattoon, Illinois, and
Okay.
that's how you can find out.
Yeah, I think that those are good enough sources to get connected and find more about you. Wonderful, David. I enjoyed the conversation. You have a rich IT experience in all different aspects, from the security aspects, from the management aspects, and I really appreciate you sharing your background and experience and knowledge with us today. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you in the near future.
Thank you, Riaz, and thank you for having me. I've enjoyed myself and appreciate the opportunity.